And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Monday, June 17th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate, get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So I hope everybody had a good weekend. I hope everybody had a good Father's Day. So let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we're going to talk about T. Higgins signing the franchise tag with the Bengals. So that's encouraging for them, that at least they're going to get him to show up, and he's at least going to play the 2024 season with the franchise tag. So we'll get into that, the impact of that. Then in the second part of the show, I will continue my schedule breakdowns. Today we will be doing the New York Jets schedule, so I will get into that. Then in the third part of the show, talk about some comments made by Tank Dell on the Texans, him talking about how he feels like they have a target on their back, so we'll get into that as well. We'll talk about TJ Watt, talking about his future and, talking about retirement. Not like he's going to retire after this year, but just, kind of, getting into that as well. So I'll get into what he had to say. And then we'll talk about another Jets topic. We'll talk about Sauce Gardner defending Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers not being at minicamp. That stirred up a bunch of criticisms and, some people defending him and saying it's not big of a deal. So I just wanted to get into that as well. So with that being said now, let's get into the first topic, which is talking about T. Higgins signing the franchise tag. So I know that T. Higgins has been a topic of conversation a lot this offseason. He's been one of the biggest topics. Well, I shouldn't say one of the, well, he has been, like I said, a topic of conversation this offseason because, between him and Brandon Ayuk looking for a new deal and, Dak Prescott looking for a new deal, quarterbacks and receivers really looking for new deals. He's been one of the biggest names. And just because he did sign the franchise tag, now this is encouraging for the Bengals. Now I just want to get out of the way, though, that this does not mean that he's going to be with the Bengals long term. It just could mean for this year. But, like I said, I just wanted to get that out of the way. But having him for the 2024 season is huge. Because they lost Tyler Boyd in free agency. They did go and draft a receiver, of course, and he's probably going to end up Jermaine Burton. He's probably going to end up being T. Higgins' replacement. And T. Higgins is eventually going to leave and go somewhere else and get a long-term deal elsewhere. But, yeah, this is kind of like, the Bengals' last shot, at least with T. Higgins. Because, Jamar Chase is going to have to get paid at some point. They're going to prioritize that. Joe Burrow now has company with Trevor Lawrence being the highest paid quarterback, in terms of, annual salary, being paid $55 million a year. So you got him set. But, yeah, now you got to pay Jamar Chase. And the Bengals are not going to have, two receivers, making big money, against the salary cap. They're just not. It just doesn't seem like that's going to end up happening. T. Higgins has a number and they have a number. But it doesn't seem like that's going to end up happening, where they're going to meet in the middle and T. Higgins is going to be around. But T. Higgins is, he's not a top 10 receiver, but, I guess, top 15 maybe. But he is, he's one of the best number twos, because that's what he is. He can be a number one on teams, but he is one of the best number two wide receivers in the NFL. Because obviously the number one receiver on the team is Jamar Chase. And that's why the Bengals, it seems like they're prioritizing signing him to a long-term deal over T. Higgins. But also because of what I just said. they don't want to have two receivers making big money, and you on top of that you have your quarterback, because you also have to, address other needs elsewhere. And if you're paying two wide receivers big money, yeah, it's going to be kind of difficult to address other needs with your team. And that's, part of the reason why they cut bait with Joe Mixon and they brought in Zach Moss on a cheaper deal. You have Chase Brown still on his rookie contract. So you got, the running back position is not making that much money. But, yeah, I mean, that's just how I look at it. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but, yeah, it just seems like they're prioritizing Chase and T. Higgins, at least for the moment. You franchise tagged him. He's going to be on the team for the 2024 season. And then after that, we'll have to wait and see. But this is big news for the Bengals because he is a solid receiver, and he's a big weapon on this team, and they're going to need him because this Bengals team has high expectations. And if Joe Burrow is healthy, they should go out there and they're going to have a good season and they're going to make the playoffs and they're going to give teams problems. And it's going to be tough because you got to knock off the team that had home field advantage last year, and that's the Ravens. They're not going anywhere. I look at them with a healthy Joe Burrow as a team that's better than the other two teams in their division, in the Steelers and the Browns, because those teams have question marks at quarterback. Deshaun Watson's coming off of an injury, and, we got to see how Russell Wilson is playing quarterback for the Steelers. But I've talked about that a bunch of times. So, yeah, it is going to be interesting, but I think it's going to be between the Ravens and the Bengals. And that doesn't mean that the Bengals don't have question marks at quarterback, because, yeah, Joe Burrow's coming off of an injury. And there's a little bit of concern, but I think he'll go out there and he's going to have a good year. And if he does, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL when he's healthy. So, I expect him to go out there and have a good year with the weapons that they have. I did mention the running back position. That is something that I'm curious to see how that plays out. Because Zach Moss, he was productive for the Colts when Jonathan Taylor was out. And Chase Brown towards the end of the year with the Bengals, yeah, he made some plays for them. So I'm curious to see how that duo is going to work out for the Bengals. But with the Bengals and the weapons that they have, throwing the football, that's what they're going to do the majority of the time. I mean, you're hoping that they can run the football effectively, because that's a plus. So, and they also do have Mike Gesicki as well, who's a good tight end. With the Patriots, I don't really think that was a good fit because they had Hunter Henry already, and just, that offense just was not very good. Now you step into a good situation where, yeah, you got a team that loves to throw the football. They got weapons. They got very good pass catchers, and I think Gesicki could fit in well there. So, but back to T. Higgins though. This is big, and for the short term. For 2024, this is good for the Bengals. Long term, we'll see how they address now, whether T. Higgins is going to be moved off of, or we'll find out. But at least for right now, the Bengals have T. Higgins for 2024, and that's huge. Because, if they had to trade him before this season, I mean, that hurts. Because I guess in next year's draft, you bring in another receiver on a rookie deal. I mean, they got some other young guys as well besides Burton. But yeah, at least you hold off a decision on what you're going to do with him for the time being, and you go from there. But that's just my opinion on it. But at least we finally got some T. Higgins news. Whether he was going to get traded. I mean, I didn't think he was going to get traded before the season. I think he was going to stick around. But at least we got news on that. So, And then after 2024, he's probably going to go elsewhere. So, but let me know what you guys think about T. Higgins signing the franchise tag. What kind of season do you think he's going to have? Still put up good numbers at times with Jake Browning at quarterback as well. I mean, the Bengals, he was injured last year, I believe. Burrow, of course, got hurt. The Bengals are looking to have a healthy 2024 season. And if they do, they're going to be one of the best teams, or at least one of the best offenses in the NFL. Like I said, they're going to battle. They're going to be battling it out with the Ravens for the top of the division, in my opinion. So with that being said, we're going to take our first break of the show, and when we come back, we will discuss the Jets' schedule for 2024. I'll go over that, give you my early win-loss predictions for them, and that is what we will do when we come back from our first break of the show. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.